And welcome to the next edition of the Value Exchange podcast. I'm Annabelle Lambert and I'm here with my regular co-host Rob Pye. Say hello, Rob Pye.
Morning, Annabelle. Morning, Lucy.
Thank you. I am delighted to welcome Lucy Lynch to be with us today. We first met Lucy through Jeff Cars, who is Ethos Wilder Sensing impresario who we've been working with for a number of years. Lucy works creating sort of pathways for her words, data curious MSc graduates to get into employment, and does an amazing job supporting where there's a massive gap with young graduates trying to get into work and they need help, and Lucy offers that a lot in her current role, but she's done many other things as well. So I'm going to hand over to Lucy to tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, why you are, and please tell us some of your stories.
Oh, thank you so much, Annabelle and Rob, for inviting me today. Super excited to be here. So my name is Lucy Lynch and I am Head of Graduate Partnerships at Eden Smith. So that's the kind of what I do and who I work with. But, I'm a regular person. I'm a mum. I've got 2 kids. I was a returning mum to work. I had 5 years out while, I went through a process of adopting my children, and I'd had like a bit of a career break. Lost all my confidence, didn't really know what to do. Before that, I'd worked in recruitment, I'd been an account manager, I had shipped oil around the world. Maybe that's not such a good thing, but I did that. I worked in retail. I was also a teacher, and I had quite a few careers. I trained actually to be an actress, and I did my degree in film. I grew up in a little village in Leicestershire in the 70s. I know I don't look old enough to be a child of the 70s, but I am. My kind of aspirations were quite small, just to kind of, grow up, get married and, and have kids. That was it. And I always kind of knew that there was something more that I should be doing. And I really felt like there was a purpose for me, but I didn't quite know what it was. And I felt like education was going to be the key. As I grew up in a family where education wasn't the be all and end all, and certainly not for women to go and study, after doing their exams. So I was between a rock and a hard place, and I made a decision really early on as a late teenager to leave home without any kind of like safety net or plan B at all, and moved to the city on the back of a motorbike, and just had a bit of a wild kind of time. Did lots of traveling, did lots of kind of crazy high energy stuff, and then came back to the UK, and then I got back into education. So I did my education. I started my A-levels when I was in my 20s, went to university, and I was called a mature student, but I was only 23. Certainly wasn't mature. Thank God I didn't go earlier. And then I did an academic degree. And I really just wanted to prove that I could do an academic degree and pass and do something, and kind of thought that would be a pivotal moment for me, but it wasn't. I still had a real yearning to travel and experience new life and culture. And I spent about 7 years traveling, all in all. Didn't have any possessions that wouldn't go in a suitcase, and until I was about 30. And then I decided, I really want to kind of get into a career and do something. I worked for a charity for 7 years, Battersea Dogs Home. Was a customer service manager there and ran 4 departments and had 22 staff, all different things going on. It was an amazing, but extremely hard environment to work in, but really interesting. And I really learned about people being at the heart of making like tough decisions about their life, their future, their pets, their welfare, their mental health. And such enjoyment also from seeing stray and abandoned animals coming through the other side, and being rehomed. And I had probably over the 7 years like a plethora of dogs and cats and kittens coming through my office, which was amazing. Um, and and I think I really decided at that point that giving back and being a kind of pivotal part in people's lives where they could go for advice and comfort, and this nurturing thing which was in me. When I was really little, I wanted to be a nurse, but I actually failed the nursing exam. I didn't really, and then I think that's how my life went a bit off track, because that was my plan. um, and then it didn't work out. I didn't really know, and society wasn't really geared towards giving you a plan B, or didn't have this support system to help me make decisions that might have been useful at the time. So I always felt like I wanted to be that person for somebody or people. And I landed in this fourth industrial revolution kind of quite by chance. So I had a LinkedIn profile when I was working in recruitment, and I sort of dusted it off, got a new profile picture on there, and thought, right, I'm gonna look for a job. Um, and I met the co-founders of Eden Smith on LinkedIn, and I just sent them a message saying, I'm looking for somebody like me, completely random little message. And they probably thought, well, who's this? And they said, yeah, let's, have a cup of tea, come into the office and meet us. And lo and behold, they were just thinking about starting an education part of the business. And here I was, just sort of coming to their door, being an ex-teacher and building something, out of nothing. So I thought, okay, let's give it a go. So they offered me a role. In the 5 years I've been off, kind of like building Lego with my kids and stuff. This fourth industrial revolution had happened, the data world had exploded, and I was slap bang in the middle of it. But I went into the office and there were no phones on the desk. I was like, how do they make phones? And VoIP had been discovered in the time that I'd been off, and everything now is on Teams and Skype and Zoom. But it was like a brave new world. But I'm quite resilient, and I wouldn't say I was quick at picking up things, but I do get there. And I really enjoy a challenge. So this was a great opportunity for me to reinvent myself, I guess. I've been at home for years, and probably had a bit of a mental health struggle, and had lots of challenges, being a mum at home, and then coming back to the workplace, and came back and did a part-time role, and then just built it up, and now I'm full-time. And now 6 years later, I've been at work and full-time, and it's been incredible. So built this nurture program, which attempts to bridge the gap between academia and industry. And I facilitate 3-month live industry projects for MSc Data Science and now Internet of Things students across the country. But mainly I have a partnership with the University of Salford in Manchester, and I work really, really closely with them, and I've created course content, and I work alongside the technical tutors there, professors. I'm now an industry lecturer as part of the faculty, and a part of the fabric of the university. So again, a thing where I've created and I've built this place, a Lucy shaped, kind of hole, and really got right into the middle of it. I don't think I do anything by halves, and I'm always looking to see what other value that I can add, what more of me can I add that will help students see the world through a different lens. I found, working with in the tech world, that the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's all about the translation. Like, we can have tech, and tech should be great and amazing and exciting, but it should enable, I feel, the citizen experience, and it shouldn't be the conduit that kind of stops progress. Our citizens, our communities should be able to have a better life, and live, I guess, a more fulfilling life through technology, enabling them to do things, but it not take over or take away this experience that I think is really crucial to being a human being in this world. And I'm really passionate about that, about not leaving people behind in our in our search for technology and an AI kind of focused life. Like I really want people to be at the heart of it and making sure that we look at everybody and everything in those decisions. So urban planners, all of that kind of stuff, that we're encompassing everybody and bringing and embracing everybody and their different requirements and needs into the plan. Yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, that's kind of where I'm
Wow,
at.
that was eloquent, incredible. You've given me enough
And I
questions really to
and I,
ponder.
I, I
Okay.
just before we start, I want to say massive empathy. Grew up in the 70s in the Midlands too. So there you go.
Okay.
I
No,
understand
that's
the
brilliant.
escape.
Well,
Anyway.
before you get too girl power on me about so I think it was quite ironic in some ways. You sort of, nothing much to me. Here's a story. It's like, oh wow, there's so much there. And the point of this podcast is that everybody's got really interesting stories. Just give people permission to talk about what it's like being you. And we did an experiment. We're always doing experiments, as you know, Lucy. Everything we do is a sort of work experiment. 10, 15 years ago, where we went to an agency called TimeWise, and we said we're interested in employing we called them knowledge workers, and this was an agency that was TimeWise. It was about women, I think,
It's
one of
about
the things, but it was
part time is what it was
part-time.
about. Yeah.
It was, and we sort of tapped in there to 12, maybe employed 6 people who had that career break. And you talked about, I think, 5 years where the crisis of confidence, and you were a mum, and etc. Then coming back into it, it's just we talk about talent gaps, etc. To be able to tap into that, the people who have had a career, had work, and then they had 4 or 5 years out. Any thoughts of that for employers or employees about how to just get back out there and not just do yourself out of everything, because you're richer, that you've had a different experience, not poorer. You might have a crisis of confidence, but it's just, what would you say to your former self who was sort of living that moment in that 5 years?
Yeah, I think what comes just intuitively is to say, thank God I never gave up. So I probably say to people, don't give up. And I think it's the way that you look at things. So, when I was looking to go back to work, I went back to previous careers and thought, oh, maybe if I'd go back to that. So, I used to be a manager for a retail store, very well known, kind of like brand store. And I thought, I'll go back to retail and I'll be a store manager and I'll run a store. I know what to do, and I do stock control, and I can do merchandising, and I can operations, and I can do payroll. I can do everything because that's how I was trained. And and it's a very different kind of world, and it's like, well, you haven't done that for 10 or so years, everything's changed. And I wouldn't even get an interview, and I thought, wow, God, I spent 3 or 4 years doing that, and I really loved it, and I was really good. But people, don't, maybe people, the companies didn't see those things, or so again, it goes back to recruitment, how you put your job description out there, what kind of keywords will knock off a whole load of people. I think people now on job descriptions, companies are a lot more inclusive, and there'll be statements on there about diversity and inclusion and disability and those kind of things. But I think definitely there's a huge piece of work about your brand And so if you're a company that's wanting to attract people, then you need to attract, you know, everybody, right? And so your messaging, your internal messaging, everything needs to be on point, which again comes back to, I don't think this is done through AI, it's a cultural thing, and it's what people feel and what people believe, and what you might say to someone that you meet down the pub or in a coffee shop, or in the supermarket. I'm always having conversations with somebody on the checkout or whatever. So it's a it's a a stream of consciousness that goes through. It's like a song, right? You want the lyrics to be consistent and carrying on. You want the chorus to be the same. So you want all your employees, I believe, to be all kind of singing the same off the same hymn sheet, right? And I think companies, maybe also it's about experience. So me, I've met you. People at Eden Smith know me, and also I've built up a big network, so they know me and probably say, "Oh, she's a good egg. She works hard, she's resilient, she's confident. All of those things." But I think when you interview people, you have to have people that are able to read between the lines, to pick up the nuances, and also to be able to attract those people, and people like me, people like myself. You need to have marketing and messaging and content that's also going to draw people like myself, to the homepage, to the website, to apply for that job. And I think little things that companies can do is that, saying things like on the job description, if you'd like to apply, but you don't think, you have all the skills, just book in to have a chat with someone before you do the painful thing of doing an application form. Kind of make that process not so fixed of you've got to do this, then you go on to this, then a bot will just reject your application. You'll get an automated response at 2 o'clock in the morning that says you weren't successful. I think curating an experience that would make anyone feel like they'd like to apply if they felt it was going to be the right job. And just on that point about if you feel like you don't have all the skills, I can't remember what the percentage is, but I think women are less inclined to apply for a job that they don't feel they've got 100% of the skills, already, whereas a man, sorry, Rob, will probably blag, 50% and go, yeah, I'll just get that. Sorry, that was a bit cheap. Sorry. But, when I applied for the Eden Smith role, I thought, well, actually, I don't have all of the skills, but I probably got about, 75%, 80, and then I can learn 9, and then I'll probably get away with another 10% somewhere and just make it. And I did, and now we've got a hugely successful sustainable program. So I did do it, and thank God I had the confidence, and there's something inside to say I can do it. But it wasn't without its challenges, like, at all. And every year I'm always crying at some point, going, oh my God, what do I do now? So I still have like big challenges and
Real
problems.
life, yeah.
But I've got more skills and more tools to be able to deal with them and set boundaries and be able to cope kind of more manageably, within those parameters.
And so I want to kind of come back to today, in sort of looking at what you do now and the MSc students and data science. But I want to pick up on your approach to your current employer on LinkedIn, and sort of apply that to younger people now. So we've done a bit about you and your gap, and then I want to come back to social value and you wanting to give something back. And I think you said you adopted children. Did you say that?
Yeah,
or did I hear it wrong? It's like, oh my goodness, there's so much in there. So and then I'll hand over to Annabelle, because I've got about 3 hours of questions, but are just the ones that stick most. So when we did Young Leaders in the pandemic, we took 65 young people. They're unemployed, furthest from the work. and offer them a basic wage and got them to build their own jobs. And we supported them in kind of helping them find their feet and their confidence through a sort of, minimum wage. But one of the things that we learnt that, to help people experience is that sort of LinkedIn thing you talked about, and that, how you got a network and you reached out and you talked, or you maybe talked to the employer before the interview. So your current experience with the MSc, students, and the sort of, and your recruitment, background, and that, when you're working with young people and you're sort of, you're helping to, them with their pathways, do you take any of that experience you've had personally and play it back to young people? Is that something that you help them with? So you've advised the career gap. What advice do you give to the young people? How do you get going? Some of them might not be motivated. Some of them go, well, it's all very well, Lucy, being you. You're amazing. You got this massive, but look at me. I don't even have an account on LinkedIn. Where do I start?
Yeah. So what we do as part of the program is, for the nurture students, then we do sort of course content, on their building their brand, specifically on LinkedIn, marketing. We have a marketing manager, Krista, and she does a session with them. So we help guide them, build their profile. It's a sort of prerequisite of building their actual online profile with us to join the program. They need to have a LinkedIn account, even if they've just set it up. We'll help them with that. I do a workshop about, there's a kind of funny, meme about a picture that you might have on LinkedIn, one that you might have on Instagram, or whatever kind of dating app, or whatever. So we kind of make a joke about things as well, and kind of saying, you need to kind of pitch yourself, this is your audience, what kind of impressions you want to leave, all of those kind of things. So we talk about, branding and marketing and how important that is, building your profile. I talk to the students about how, I got my job on LinkedIn. I look at, my posts, I don't obviously, my content is not about obtaining likes or whatever, but obviously there is an algorithm. So there are certain things, so there's certain etiquette. So if you tag someone on LinkedIn, they need to kind of at least respond or like the post or do something, because otherwise it upsets the algorithm. So we talk a lot, about building our profile and our network, and saying that I always think there's sort of two things here, is that the people that, I'm meeting now are a years, before, away from where I am now, right? They're maybe in the beginning of their career. But, what is surprising and what is amazing about the speed of this technology and where we are in this industrial revolution, it goes so quickly. So, say I've had a student 2 years ago that's gone through the program, done a project, then has got a job, then comes back to me on LinkedIn, invites me to do a little, talk to their boss and say, I came through this amazing nurture program, and now here we are. Lucy's got another cohort. Would you like to get involved? And now those students then become my clients within 2 years, or even less than that. Or they then become, set up their own business and say, oh, we should do the nurture program. And then they come back to me. And so it's actually quite a quick turnaround. And so I always believe that from a personal, professional, outcome, is that I should always treat people respectfully and kindly. And that you never know where those people are going to end and land in your life. And so I always say, and try and coach the students, that having a professional, relationship with everyone that they meet, no matter where they are in their career, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know what way the world's going to turn. Look at us in our political climate, and our climate, and our actual climate change. It's crazy what's going on. So I think, and my rule of thumb is just treat everybody kindly and with respect. And you're far more likely to get more engagement from people as well if you're just talking to them. You're interested about their life, their challenges. Often I'll be building my network, but hopefully I'm doing it in a way where people will want to talk to me. And it's not me about trying to sell a service or a product. You know, that's what I do. But, you know, I'm also very, very keen to attract people to the network that are going to want to be part of it and part of my content and lean in and learn. So it's all about this whole cyclical thing where everybody's learning from each other, which is why I've tried to put different things in place where we can keep that cycle going, because that's really important.
So everybody's learning from each other, and if somebody's sort of watching this, you know, they will listen at Lucy and go, "Well, she's just done so many incredible things," and yet the sort of introduction was, "Well, I'm just, you know, I'm not much interested in it." So the I'm not even sure how to ask this question, but you're clearly someone who's very self-aware, in touch with why you've done the things you've done and how you've done it and when you've done those things. And we would say, you know, Lucy has done loads of things that are incredibly socially valuable. When I look at the fact that you have adopted 2 children, you know, I'm kind of in absolute awe of, you know, the sort of giving that one might, you know, have to give of themselves and love in order to adopt and then, you know, or foster or love other human beings, not through, you know, being a biological parent. And then you wind that forward to the MSc or the, you know, your story generally, and that, you know, your job in a charity, you know, for working for 7 years there. So it's been a very overt part of your life, but yet parts of your life exist in all of us. You know, we all help people, we all receive help, we're all brothers or, you know, sons, daughters. So the sort of this giving bit is what we call social value. You know, it's like helping people's well-being. And what advice to your young people or other friends, people that you know, would you give for somebody who's maybe less in touch with their social value than you are, when you're working with young people that care about the planet, that, you know, want to help each other, this support network, that maybe they're not as in touch, or maybe they are in touch but they just don't know, yeah, but, you know, I'm not really comfortable talking out loud like Lucy is. I'm not. She's an extrovert. She's this wonderful person. This is me. I don't talk about this stuff. The stories are there, but sometimes they need to be uncovered. Is what we found.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, we do. You know, I offer like 6 workshops directly to my Salford students. It sits alongside their technical training. So I'm employed to teach them the soft skills, which are not soft skills. They're completely, you know, undeniably the most needed skills that you could have, right? So communication and, you know, curiosity, creativity. They're my top 3, you know, C's in the world that I just go, right, you can't live without these things. You need to be able to access these things. And I think some people also, like you're saying, like how do they access them, or they're you know, unsure, or, you know, a bit underconfident. So, you know, I take it back and I always go with personal experience, because I think, well, that's what we're an expert in, is like how did I discover
Well,
this
your
stuff
stories,
myself?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
So storytelling is a massive thing. So I hope that, you know, my students and my alumni, they'll know that I love to talk, but also to listen, and active listening, like really hearing and picking up those nuances and those bits that aren't said. That's very important for me. And I think um, I'm very much an advocate of the arts, which is why, you know, I also work with Camden STEAM project, where they put the A in for the A's, you know, A in for arts, you know, in STEM, and called it STEAM.
Steam.
And I'm part of the STEAM program as well. And so I've worked in, you know, schools with, you know, kids that are 11 to 12 years old, so like my son's age, which was quite daunting. And I don't know if I was the best at that now. I probably much prefer working with my master's students. But anyway, that's probably another podcast. But what I found was that the advice that I'm giving is that, and what I'm teaching them is about discovering everything. There's a whole world out there, like I spent 7 years traveling, but I lived in the New York Public Library. I just loved that place, and I went to all the galleries, all the shows, all the theatre. I was in theatre, I was in film. Art to me is like one of the most amazing places if you can access it, also lots for free, and absorb that. And somehow, I don't know what it is, an unconscious thing, a spiritual thing, whatever you want to call it, it acts in an intuitive way that I think helps me build my program and work in a technological world. But I do it with, there's another dimension in it. And I think I definitely owe it to the arts for leading me down that path, because I think that's also, not to be so bold to say, but I think that's what does set me apart from other. There isn't anyone like that I know of doing exactly what I'm doing. So it's quite a unique niche kind of world. But, and I used to think I feel lonely because no one else really doing this, but I'm filled with so much art in my life, and I paint and I draw and I play music, and and I write. And I think tapping into the arts, which is why, I find it really hard that the government has stopped all of these, activities for children, because it was such an important part of my life. And I definitely don't think I would be the person I did unless I'd accessed those things and kept hold of them. And so education for me is also accessing creativity. And I really firmly believe that being a great data scientist, because obviously that's my world, even though I'm not one and I'm not technical, but I'm a storyteller. And that's the best thing, that, to be able to take the data off the page, otherwise it's just static. You need to be able to tell the story. And so, when I often talk to my students about doing things in the world and being part of stuff, and if they're stuck at stuff, and I'm like, just go to the art gallery, just go and do this, just try this, and send them links to things. And I'm like, and also the whole thing about being confident. So, my first speaking spot when we when we launched the Nurture program was at Big Data London. There was 150 people in a lounge. There was me. I was absolutely scared to death. I hadn't done any public speaking for a long time. I hadn't been on stage for a long time. I had little flashcards. I've got a video of me, and I'm actually cringing, but oh, God love me, I did try. But there was one bit I'd written it down because I was just, this awful thing of just like, what, why are people going to listen to me, and what have I got to say, and all this self-doubt and all this like, old mum stuff like going on, like, who am I? No, I'm just really a bit of a fraud. But I don't want to get into that whole imposter syndrome. I'm kind of like against that. I really want to see it as a learning cycle, as something I came through, but something I learned. And it's interesting, people, and like yourself, see me as confident, but I could stand on the sidelines and be really like shook to my core of like, how am I going to have the confidence to actually just reach out and talk to somebody, and interestingly, when I did this public speaking, I used a quote from Anise Nin, and then I felt confident to talk about, because it's something that I felt. And I find this is what I also talk to students about is, you want to do something, great in the world, something that you're proud of, something you're passionate about. You need to feel it. It's got to come from, a good place. So I work with a lot of charities doing the Nurture program, but I also work with a lot of, local authorities with social housing. I'm like a magnet drawn to people that are doing good things. So I guess that whole cycle of things is that I want to keep bringing in, clients to the group that also have a good feeling of, social justice and purpose, and, trying to I guess, embed that in the students as well. And they'll remember those projects and those people and those lives that they've changed, through doing their projects. And even if they go off and chase the big bucks and go to Silicon Valley, that's fine. But as long as they remember, the good things and to be an ethical, good soul in the world. I guess that would.
And I think that there's so much in the world that is the hard science of it all, the skill, qualification,
Yeah,
the job experience you have, but really what everyone wants is the soft stuff, your 3 C's or all of the behavioral stuff. And more employers, are kind of, how do we get the coaching? How do we
absolutely.
get the, and, just in a shout out for us geeks, that creativity takes many forms. And if you're a programmer or a data scientist, to be able to make the data sing or to make the code sing, that's a metaphor. It's not really going to sing, but it's going to be beautiful data or beautiful code, is what technologists can make, do make their art. So you're not trying to strip humanity out of the technology. You're trying to put humanity in technology. And I think that, you're a totally rare, mix of this sort of hard and soft. You're at the hardest edge of that industrial revolution with data science and,
Yeah.
chat GPT in the world of artificial intelligence. And what you're doing is pushing creativity. And that's what we need. We need humanity and love. And there's some brilliant people at the moment talking about how do we inject that love into the code and AI. If we don't, it'll kill us.
Mm-hmm.
If we do, then we can have technology on our side. And that, that's just very moving. So I've babbled enough. So Annabelle, your turn to put Lucy on the spot.
So Lucy, I love the fact that you described where you are as, a Lucy-shaped hole. I just like that is totally at the centre of what you've created there. I like that thought. I'm going to steal that. I hope you don't mind. But what was on my mind also in what you were saying was about ensuring authenticity, both from a organisational perspective, because it's very easy to do marketing and comms, which can be quite inauthentic and not real, and understanding a little bit sort of your experience of. I feel people should be able to access the culture of an organisation before they make a decision about whether they should be working there,
Absolutely.
and that's not an easy thing to do, and it's definitely not the way the recruitment, model is set up at the moment on the whole. I wondered whether you had any sort of experience as to where that's working well, or any thoughts on where we could improve that, because it's a big missing for me, and you're right at the front end
Yeah,
of filling that gap.
sure. I think that's a great question. And I think, what I found, and obviously working with Eden Smith Group, is that you have like your marketing material, you have your content, you have your shiny stuff and whatever. But definitely what I've found is that it's people that sell products, right? Services. It's people. I mean, obviously you've got clever stuff that goes on in the background, but I think that real human element, and it's not just ticking a box and we're doing a little pit walk and here are our pictures and that kind of stuff. I think having a culture of people that work in an organization that also want from the heart want to talk about what they're doing, and it hasn't got to go through loads of red tape. It's not got to get approved by marketing, and that everybody has got a voice, everybody's got a story in the organization. And surely you wouldn't employ a whole bunch of people if you didn't want to hear what they had to say, or you were a bit nervous about what they might say, because all of those boxes should have been ticked, and you should be going as a CEO, or like, phew, okay, we're okay. We've got a good bunch of people that want to talk and want to share their experiences of working here. And I think when you're looking at companies, people can go on Glassdoor and have a look at stuff, but I definitely, it's what I say to my students, is that when on your LinkedIn profile, they for an employee or potential employer will go straight to your LinkedIn. They also go to GitHub and check your code. But if you go to LinkedIn and it will say on there, there's a little box on there that will say, this person hasn't posted lately. And I'm always like, red flag, this person, has a great position. Why aren't they sharing like stuff, even if they just spend like half an hour every week and just post something or share their thoughts? Or, I'm always about, learning, and if you've got some interesting stuff. So at night, sometimes watching the telly, or I go onto Google, or I find a news story and then I send it to myself, and I've got a whole, folder in my inbox that's got, future posts. So I'll see stuff from around the world and whatever, and I'll put them, and then I'll make a story out of them. And I think, being interested in the world is also is a massive influencer on whether somebody wants, to come and have you join their company as well. Because if you're engaged and you're motivated, I think those are really attractive skills. And, and I also think, platforms like LinkedIn, where you've got a voice, I think that also, like I did, I found my job, through that. But I've also found lots of clients through LinkedIn, who I've just loved their content and gone,
Yeah.
I really want to work with them. So I've sent them, sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm just batted off going, well, yeah, I don't need to talk to you right now, but maybe I will in the future. And I think, having an interest in what people are talking about, what they're, and what they're learning and what they're failing at, and talking about those failings and what happened, and oh my God, but I did learn this. And I think being able to be it's a bit of an oxymoron, being able to be vulnerable but be safe at the same time, right? To be able to share, but authentically, and go, well, I really messed that up, but this is what I learned. I think that's okay, and no, like we know, like no one's perfect, and everyone makes mistakes, and we want to
We
learn
have
from.
Lucy. We have an emerging collaboration with a philosopher at the moment who wrote to me on LinkedIn and said, I hope you don't, you're not going to be offended, but I just wanted to point out a typo in, this that you might care about. And his random act of kindness blew me away so much. And I just, thank you, for your random act of kindness. It's just so lovely, to experience humanity.
Yeah.
And relationship is developing from there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely. So I think you have to attract people, and to be attractive to people, you need to be visible. But that doesn't have to be in a shouty way. And, I've got, 10 things that you need to do, or getting up, at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing a nice bath and all those things, and and things that can make you feel like you're not performing, because you're not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and doing a 15-mile hike, and then you're getting in a nice bath, and then you're skiing down a mountain, and then you're only eating microbiotic food, and then you're doing this, and then oh my
That's
God,
my
it's
life.
exhausting just to do it sometimes. It's like, just
That's
chill
where
out,
I'm
just
going
give yourself.
wrong. That's where I'm going wrong.
I don't do any of those things,
That's
believe
what I'm doing
me.
this afternoon.
But if you do it, that's great. But I
Yeah.
often think those people don't have kids like I've got. Like I just couldn't manage that whole kind of world. Like, I just can't. So I think being yourself, but being interested and being active, and finding a way to be visible, I think is important. And I
Yeah,
think
and
LinkedIn,
accessible,
like,
I think, is what I'm feeling,
yeah,
because not everybody does social media, and that doesn't make them a bad person. I mean, it's a really great what goes on,
yeah,
in some ways on LinkedIn. But if you're not doing that, then I feel you have a responsibility, to anybody who would want to come and work with you, to at least have an opportunity to be accessible in some way, whatever
yeah.
that is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've had some students that I think pretty much, I would say 99% have a LinkedIn account, but they also they might have built their own website, and
Yeah.
then they've got their own link to this is me. And then that's, and then that's fine, right? So, but you need to be able to tell your story in some way, and people need to, I guess employers, future employers want to be able to access it to get a kind of sneaky peek and see, lift a little bit before they know they want to have a conversation with you. And I think you don't want to cut off any opportunities, right? You don't want to, curb those things. And so I think if you can, and obviously I'm always there to guide them and help them access those things and help them along the way.
Fantastic. I'm very conscious of the time. We are 46 minutes and we had a stall at the beginning, so we're running out of time. So Rob, do you have anything else that you want to ask Lucy? Otherwise we'll say thank you.
No, Lucy, we've been recording for a little while. You've like your life, in this Value Exchange podcast, you've crammed a quart into a pint pot. It's just so much in there. And I want to thank you for sharing so many lovely stories. It's such a wonderful life, and keep up the fantastic work. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wait, bye.